Hello, book enthusiasts, and welcome to Listen with Best Audiobooks. All our audiobooks are originally written, produced, and narrated by us. We don't reuse or repurpose third-party content. Every script, voice, and edit is made exclusively for this channel. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin today's audiobook.
Influence doesn't start with others. It starts with you. It begins long before you speak, long before you enter the room, long before you pitch your idea. Influence is not about words or tricks. It is about energy, control, certainty, inner alignment. And most of all, understanding how people respond to presence long before they respond to speech. Before anyone will follow your lead, they must feel your command, not over them, but over yourself. If your mind is cluttered, your words will be too. If your intention is scattered, your results will follow. The first person you must persuade is always yourself. That means removing desperation, letting go of the need to be accepted, releasing the pressure to prove something. Because influence can't grow where insecurity lives. You may memorize scripts, learn strategies, mimic successful communicators, but if you don't first own your state of mind, none of it will land. People may hear you, but they won't follow. The most persuasive people in the world don't rush, they don't push, they don't chase. Their calm energy creates a gravitational pull. When they speak, they are not simply sharing information, they are shaping perception. Their words are steady, their tone is measured, their presence speaks louder than their pitch. This is where influence truly begins, in calmness, in silence, in choosing to control the only thing that ever mattered, yourself. The psychology of first impressions. Before anyone hears your words, their subconscious makes judgments about you in seconds. They scan for certainty. They feel for confidence. They search for authenticity. You can't fake these things, not sustainably, and you don't need to. What you need is presence, stillness, authority that doesn't shout. People want to follow someone who appears to know where they're going. It doesn't mean you need to have all the answers. It means you need to move like someone who isn't lost. Persuasion begins with this non-verbal communication. Are you centered? Are you clear? Are you reactive or responsive? Are you trying to win, or are you calmly guiding the room? People notice, and they either resist or relax. You are constantly teaching others how to treat you, and it starts in the first few seconds before the logic begins, before your points are made, before you sell, negotiate, lead, or redirect. This is where persuasion is misunderstood by so many. They focus on the lines, the techniques, the scripts, forgetting that people are emotional, intuitive, and constantly reading what's not being said. If your tone betrays uncertainty, no words can save you. If your posture reflects discomfort, no strategy can repair the damage. But if you're aligned, if your energy matches your intention, people lean in. They feel safer, they feel seen, they feel led. Influence is about control, not of others, but of yourself. Let go of the idea that you need to manipulate or dominate to persuade. Real influence is clean. It comes from internal control, not external pressure. The person who can remain calm under tension, the one who doesn't need to dominate to win, that's the person others listen to. Control means emotional regulation. It means not being pulled into someone else's frame. It means staying grounded when someone challenges you. That's where power is built, not in always having the last word, but in never losing your internal balance. You don't need to convince people of anything. You need to create the space for them to believe in something through how you speak, how you listen, how you lead. And leadership, at its root, is emotional authority, the one who can hold space without reacting, the one who doesn't flinch when challenged. That person earns influence. People follow calm. They follow certainty. They follow the one who looks like they've already been where others are trying to go. That's why persuasion isn't built in the moment of speech. It's built in the hours you spend mastering your inner world. Intent is everything. When you communicate from ego, people feel it. When you speak from need, people resist. But when your intent is clean, when you're focused on a mutual win, when you're grounded in service rather than control, resistance fades. The most influential people are not always the smartest, the richest, or the most educated. They are the most intentional. They speak with purpose. They listen with presence. They operate with emotional clarity. Intent shapes everything. Two people can say the same words and get wildly different responses. Why? Because one is speaking to get something and the other is speaking to connect. Influence is connection. Deep, emotional, unseen connection. And that only happens when your intent is clear and aligned. The inner dialogue of influence. You can't persuade others while battling with yourself. If you're second-guessing, if you're doubting, if your mind is cluttered with fear, you are already losing ground. Before every conversation, ask yourself, who do I need to be in this moment? Not, what do I say, but what energy do I bring? Do you enter the room seeking something, or do you enter as someone who already carries value? Do you speak to get attention, or do you speak from a place of calm power? That shift in internal language changes everything. When your inner voice is stable, your outer words land stronger. Creating the space for influence to happen, people are persuaded when they feel seen, not when they feel sold to. Influence isn't about talking, it's about creating space. It's about listening so intently that others feel understood. And when people feel understood, they trust. And when they trust, they open. And when they open, you guide. So slow down. Speak less. Listen deeper. Ask questions that show presence, not just curiosity. Let people feel that you're not just hearing them, you're with them. That's when influence happens. That's when people lower their guard and allow new thoughts in. Not because you forced them to, but because you created the emotional conditions for change. And that, more than anything, is the mark of a master persuader. Not someone who argues better, but someone who understands deeper. Becoming the person people. Say yes to people, don't say yes to ideas. They say yes to people. And they say yes to people who feel strong, stable, safe. Your words matter, but your energy matters more. To master persuasion, become the person who others feel better around. Calm, clear, grounded, unshaken. Your greatest tool in influence is who you become, not what you say. And when you build that person in silence, in practice, in patience, your words carry a different weight. They don't just reach the ears, they move the heart. Chapter 2. The Subtle Art of Reading. People. Before you can persuade anyone, you must first understand them, not at the surface level, not based on their words alone, but deeply, emotionally, instinctively. The people who influence best are not always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who listen better than anyone else. They read energy. They read intent. They observe what others miss. Reading people isn't manipulation, it's awareness. It's the ability to tune into a person's emotional frequency and sense what they're feeling even when they can't say it out loud. It's a skill that requires patience, focus, and quiet observation. And once you learn to master it, your ability to persuade becomes effortless. Because when people feel seen, they open up. And when they open up, they become movable. Listening beyond the words. Most people listen to respond. Influencers listen to understand. The moment you begin truly listening, you'll start hearing more than words. You'll hear tension in the voice, hesitation in the pause, deflection in the tone. That's where the real information is. People are constantly broadcasting how they feel. The question is, are you paying attention? Does their body match their tone? Are they aligned in posture or closed off? Are their eyes focused or distracted? Are their words firm or uncertain? The smallest signals, subtle facial twitches, micro-expressions, hand movements, are constant data. Learn to read it. The key to deep persuasion lies in making people feel like you understand them better than they understand themselves. That can't be done by just hearing their words. You have to hear what's underneath. You have to become a mirror, not to copy them, but to reflect them. Emotional mirroring. The gateway to trust. Mirroring isn't mimicry, it's emotional matching. It's when you gently reflect someone's energy, tone, and body language to create harmony. People feel safest around those who feel familiar, and when you subtly mirror them, they feel understood on an unconscious level. It doesn't require exaggeration. A slight lean when they lean, a softening of your voice when theirs lowers, a pause when they hesitate. These small cues signal, I'm with you. I'm not trying to dominate you. I'm tuned into your rhythm. Once that rapport is built, they stop guarding. They stop defending. They start listening. And that's when influence begins. Spotting resistance without needing words. A master persuader doesn't wait to be told no to sense resistance. They see it in posture, in a sudden shift in breathing, in the narrowing of eyes, in the crossing of arms. They adjust not by forcing the conversation forward, but by softening it, pulling back instead of pushing harder. You don't win people over by bulldozing objections. You win them by sensing hesitation before it becomes verbalized, and that can only happen when you are fully present. It's not about saying the right thing, it's about saying the right thing at the right time, in the right emotional climate. You can't learn that from a script, you learn that by paying attention. Everyone wants something. At the root of every conversation is an unmet need. It might be respect, recognition, safety, freedom, connection. Influence isn't about using these needs against people. It's about recognizing them and offering alignment. What is this person really craving beneath their words? What are they trying to protect? What are they afraid of losing? These questions may not be spoken, but they're present in every negotiation, every sale, every leadership moment. And when you can identify what matters most to someone, even when they're hiding it, you can shape your message around that need. You don't force them to bend. You show them how their need can be met by moving in your direction. That's true influence, not forcing people to your side, but aligning your message with their emotions. Personality patterns and human behavior. Not everyone responds to influence the same way. Some people need data, others need emotion, some need reassurance, others want directness. One of the most advanced persuasion tools is pattern recognition, understanding how people think and what motivates their decisions. Observe how someone makes choices. Are they slow and cautious, fast and impulsive? Do they need social proof or personal experience? Do they value logic or gut instinct? The better you become at recognizing behavioral patterns, the more precise your communication becomes. You start tailoring your tone, your rhythm, your delivery based on who's in front of you. That adaptability is what separates amateurs from masters. You don't change your truth. You change your approach. That's not weakness. That's strategic intelligence. The energy behind the interaction. Some people enter a room and drain the energy. Others light it up without saying a word. That's not about charisma. It's about alignment. When someone is in full ownership of who they are, their presence expands. They speak less, but mean more. They move slower, but seem more certain. You must become aware of the energy you bring into a space. Are you anxious? Are you rushed? Are you trying to be liked? Because if that's the case, people will feel it and resist. But when you walk in with calm certainty, not needing anything, not trying to impress, just being fully present, people will follow you without understanding why. Energy is your unspoken language. Learn to master it, because persuasion doesn't begin when you open your mouth. It begins the moment you walk in the room. Reading the room. Every room has a tone, a temperature, a dominant emotion. And the persuader who senses that energy before speaking can adjust instantly. Is the mood light, serious, tense, open? You don't influence well when you impose. You influence best when you synchronize. That doesn't mean being inauthentic. It means being emotionally intelligent. You can feel when a moment needs silence instead of strategy. You can feel when it's time to lead and when it's time to listen. You move not just with your logic, but with the flow of the moment. And in that flow, your words find power. Chapter 3. Framing the conversation before it begins. In persuasion, what you say matters, but what comes before you speak often matters more. That's where framing lives. It's the unseen force that shapes how people interpret your words, react to your presence, and receive your offer. Before any negotiation, presentation, or conversation, you are already setting the frame. Whether you do it consciously or not determines whether you lead or follow. Framing is the art of controlling perception before logic enters the room. And the person who controls the frame controls the outcome. Let's be clear. Framing is not about faking. It's not about deception. It's about intention, direction, subtle cues that tell others how to view you, your message, and the dynamic between you. Most people walk into situations unprepared, hoping to convince others. Masters of persuasion walk in having already shaped the stage where the influence will happen. Why framing matters. People rarely interpret what you say in a vacuum. They interpret it through a lens, a frame that gives meaning to your words. That frame may be set by their own assumptions, or it may be shaped by you. If you don't set the frame, someone else will. And when someone else frames the conversation, you become reactive. You defend instead of direct. You chase instead of lead. You speak with truth, but it sounds hollow because the context was set against you. That's why framing is everything. It's the positioning of power before persuasion even starts. For example, imagine two people walk into a room. One introduces themselves confidently, stands tall, and begins with, "Let me walk you through what's possible today." The other starts with, "Thanks for taking the time to meet with me. I hope I can show you something useful." Same words may follow, but the frame is already set. One is in control, the other is seeking validation. Pre-framing, the unseen advantage. The real frame is often set before the first word is spoken, in your demeanor, in your entrance, in the way you shake hands, in your facial expression, in your first few seconds of tone and eye contact. This is called pre-framing. It's the emotional and psychological environment you create before the actual interaction begins. Great persuaders know this. That's why they prepare their energy, not just their script. That's why they walk in calm, centered, and without rush. If your energy says, "I need this," you've already lost the frame. If your energy says, "Let's explore if this is a good fit," you keep control. Because control comes from detachment, not apathy, but composure. Pre-framing also includes reputation. If someone already knows you as a person of value, the frame is in your favor before the conversation starts. That's why credibility and consistency matter. People respond to what they believe about you before they respond to what you say to them. Types of frames and how they work. There are many kinds of frames in human interaction. Here are some of the most powerful ones. 1. The expert frame. When you're seen as the authority, people defer to your insight. They listen more. They question less. This frame is established through confidence, past results, and how clearly you speak without over-explaining. 2. The prize frame. In this frame, you are the prize, not what you're offering. The other person is fortunate to engage with you. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means controlled self-worth. When you position yourself as someone with options, your value rises instantly. 3. The investigator frame. This frame flips the script. Instead of trying to prove your offer, you ask questions to qualify the other person. Tell me why this might be a fit for you. It puts you in the position of the selector, not the seller. This frame shifts attention and keeps you emotionally unhooked. 4. The vision frame. This frame focuses on purpose, impact, and future alignment. Instead of discussing features or negotiation points, you speak about the vision, the mission, what's possible. People are more easily persuaded when they feel part of something bigger. You can switch frames, but only when done with control. Losing frame mid-conversation creates doubt. Holding frame builds trust. Frame control, staying grounded under pressure. There will be moments when others challenge your position. They'll interrupt, disagree, or try to pull the frame toward themselves. This is where your internal control becomes key. Frame control is not aggression, it's grounded patience. It's speaking less, but with more weight. It's not over-explaining, not rushing to fill silence, not reacting emotionally when challenged. Remember, the most powerful person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who remains centered. Calm is persuasive. Stillness is influence. Detachment is power. If someone tries to dominate the frame with arrogance, you don't push back. You hold space. You pause. You ask a pointed question. You redirect calmly. When you don't flinch, people feel it. And in that feeling, respect grows. Framing through language. Your words shape perception, not just what you say, but how you say it. Persuasive language frames the outcome before the listener even realizes it. I think this might work for you. Versus, this solution aligns directly with the results you're looking for. I hope this idea makes sense. Versus, let me show you how this idea unlocks what we just discussed. Subtle shift, massive impact. Great persuaders don't ask for agreement. They guide people toward it. They use language that assumes alignment, not conflict. They speak with certainty, not force. They invite rather than push. That's how language frames the path forward. Holding frame. When the stakes are high. When the conversation really matters, when money, relationships, or high-impact decisions are involved, the pressure rises, and with pressure, frames are tested. This is where true persuasion mastery is revealed. You maintain your posture, you slow down your speech, you allow silence. You make your listener feel your control, not over them, but over yourself. And in that moment, your frame becomes a shelter, a place others can trust. Because people don't just follow logic, they follow emotional safety. When your presence feels calm, directed, and non-reactive, they will move with you. Chapter 4. Building instant trust. Without saying a word. Trust is the gateway to influence. Without it, your words fall flat. Your logic is ignored. Your offers are dismissed. But with trust, real, felt trust, you don't need to work as hard. People listen, they consider, they move. And the most powerful form of trust, it's the kind you build without even speaking. Because trust doesn't start with language. It starts with presence, with energy, with the subtle cues that communicate to the other person, you're safe here. I'm solid. You can relax. We like to think persuasion is about being convincing. But in truth, people are not persuaded by what you say. They are persuaded by how they feel around you. And if they don't feel safe, grounded, and seen, they won't move, no matter how perfect your pitch may be. So if you want to become a master of persuasion, your first job is not to speak well. It's to be someone who others trust instantly. The foundations of unspoken trust. When someone meets you for the first time, their nervous system begins scanning for signals. Can I trust this person? Are they safe? Do they have good intentions? These questions are not asked out loud, but they are asked subconsciously in seconds, and the answers don't come from your words. They come from your eye contact. Are you grounded or shifty? Posture. Are you open or closed? Facial expression. Are you at ease or tense? Tone of presence. Are you pushing to impress or calmly letting your value speak? These signals determine the emotional tone of the interaction. They either open the door or close it. And once a person has formed that impression, it becomes the lens through which they interpret everything else you say. Calm is the language of leadership. Most people walk into rooms carrying nervous energy. They overtalk, they fidget, they rush their words, and all of this screams insecurity. It doesn't matter how good their ideas are. No one trusts someone who feels unstable. The antidote? Calm. Calm energy is magnetic. It communicates control, strength, awareness, and above all, it makes others feel safe. You don't need to be charismatic. You don't need a booming voice. You simply need to be calm. Calm tells people, I'm not a threat. I'm not needy. I don't need to prove anything. I'm here to serve, to guide, to lead. That's what earns trust, not noise, not flash, but stillness. Presence over performance. One of the most underrated skills in influence is full presence. Most people are half there. They're thinking about what to say next. They're worried about how they look. They're performing. But when you drop all that and become fully present, people feel it instantly. You listen not just with your ears, but with your eyes, your body, your silence. You give them the rare experience of being truly seen. That's powerful, because we live in a world starving for attention, and the person who offers full presence stands out immediately. They are remembered, they are trusted, they are followed. The power of stillness. You don't need to rush into a conversation. In fact, one of the most powerful ways to build trust is to use stillness. Stillness creates space. Space allows safety. Safety builds trust. When you pause before speaking, when you let someone finish fully, when you don't interrupt or fill the silence, you're showing them that you're not anxious, you're not chasing, you're not needy, you're grounded. And grounded people are magnetic. They become trusted advisors without even asking to be, because others sense this person isn't performing, they're real. Detachment, the key to unshakable trust. Ironically, one of the best ways to build trust is to be willing to walk away. When you don't need the outcome, people feel safer around you. They know you won't manipulate them. They know you're not trying to win at their expense. Your detachment signals freedom, and freedom earns respect. When you walk into a room carrying emotional detachment, people drop their guard. They think, this person doesn't need me to agree. They're just offering value, and that frame creates influence. You don't have to convince people, you just have to stop trying to control them. Congruence, alignment, between what you say and who you are. Trust breaks when there's a mismatch. When your words say one thing, but your body or tone says something else, that lack of congruence makes people uneasy. It triggers doubt, even if they can't explain why. If you say you're confident, but your eyes dart, if you say you're relaxed, but your breath is shallow, if you say you're trustworthy, but your posture is closed, they won't believe the words. They'll believe the signal. That's why inner work matters more than outer polish. You don't fake congruence. You become congruent by aligning your thoughts, your energy, your words, and your presence. When all of that is in harmony, people feel the truth, and trust follows. How to walk into any room and be trusted. There's a specific mindset that creates instant trust. Not because you're trying to manipulate anyone, but because you've trained yourself to be the kind of person others naturally trust. Before you enter the room, clear your mind, ground your breath, reconnect with your intention, drop the need to be liked, focus on service, not validation. Then walk in slowly, take your time, hold eye contact, relax your body, don't rush, don't oversell, let your presence do the heavy lifting. And when you finally speak, your words will land deeper, not because they're perfect, but because people already believe you. The secret: most don't understand people aren't persuaded by arguments. They're persuaded by identity. Not yours, but theirs. They say yes to people who make them feel like the best version of themselves. If you can show up with calm confidence, if you can see people without judging them, if you can speak without pressure, they begin to trust not just you, but who they are around you. That's when transformation happens. That's when influence becomes effortless. That's when people start saying yes without fully knowing why. Because your presence felt like leadership. And real leadership doesn't ask for trust. It earns it without saying a word. Chapter 5. The Hidden Power of Strategic Silence. In a world where everyone is talking, silence becomes power. Most people believe persuasion happens in speech, in the perfect pitch, the clever line, the well-timed argument. But the masters know better. They know the real influence doesn't come from what's said. It comes from what's left unsaid, on purpose. Strategic silence is not hesitation. It's not fear. It's not emptiness. It's pressure. It's positioning. It's leverage. When used correctly, silence creates space that makes others lean in. It creates discomfort that forces people to fill the gap with their own thoughts, emotions, or even decisions. It is the pause that amplifies your power. Silence creates psychological tension. In every conversation, there is a rhythm. Most people speak to fill silence, to avoid awkwardness, to maintain flow. But that flow is not always your friend. When you speak too quickly, you remove the tension. You give away your power. You allow the listener to relax too soon. But when you pause, even for just a second longer than expected, you break the rhythm, you disrupt the flow. And that disruption demands attention. It tells the other person, pay attention now, this moment matters. Silence builds tension, and tension, used skillfully, becomes persuasion. People feel the pause more than they hear your words, and what they feel, they remember. The one who speaks less controls more. In negotiation, the most powerful person is often the one who speaks the least. Why? Because every time you talk, you reveal something, an opinion, a fear, a need. But silence? Silence hides everything. It creates mystery. It forces others to make assumptions. And those assumptions often lean in your favor. When you say less, your words carry more weight. You are no longer just participating in the conversation. You're guiding it by choosing not to overexpose your position. In sales, in relationships, in leadership, talking too much is often what weakens your position. Silence keeps your frame intact. It keeps the pressure on the other person to move toward you, to interpret your pauses, to react to your presence rather than to your pitch. Let them speak. Then let the silence work. Silence isn't just for you. It's also a mirror. When you stop talking, people start revealing. They fill the space. They disclose more than they intended. They offer insight. They express emotion. They tell you what matters to them. And all of it happens in that empty moment when they thought you'd speak, but you didn't. That's where clarity lives, in what they say when you stay silent. Let them talk. Let them explain. Let them try to justify or convince. And when they're done, say nothing. Let the silence sit. Let it grow heavy. They will often continue, adding details, softening objections, even shifting their position. All because silence made them uncomfortable, and you remained calm. You didn't need to push. You just needed to wait. Silence as framing. We've talked about framing earlier, but silence is one of the strongest framing tools you'll ever use. It tells people how to perceive you, how to value you, how much your voice matters. Because when you do speak, it's rare. The person who talks constantly loses status. The person who speaks with precision, surrounded by silence, builds authority. In a world obsessed with constant expression, restraint becomes elite. Your silence says, I am not here to perform, I am not here to beg. I speak when it's worth it. And that frame is unforgettable. Silence in emotional conversations. Persuasion isn't always transactional. Sometimes it's deeply emotional, a conflict, a difficult conversation, a vulnerable moment, and in those spaces, silence is not pressure, it's presence. You don't always need the right words. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be still. Let someone feel their own words. Let them hear themselves. That's where healing begins. That's where trust is built. That's where influence goes beyond logic and reaches the heart. Silence says, I'm not rushing you. Silence says, you matter. Silence says, I'm here. And sometimes that's all the persuasion needed. The discipline of the pause. Using silence well isn't easy. It takes emotional control. It takes patience. It takes the ability to sit with discomfort. Most people can't do that. They crack. They fill the space. They speak too soon. And every time they do, they dilute their message. But the one who masters silence builds an edge no one can touch. A 3-second pause before your words adds gravity. A moment of quiet after your message adds impact. A refusal to speak during pressure adds power. This isn't a trick. This is mastery. You are not pausing to manipulate. You are pausing because you know that silence magnifies what you say. Becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Here's the truth most people won't say. Silence can feel uncomfortable, especially when stakes are high, especially when you're waiting for a response, especially when you want the other person to say yes. But the person who can sit through that discomfort without breaking wins. Because silence in high-stakes moments shows strength. It says, I don't need to chase. It says, I trust my position. It says, I'm not in a hurry. And that composure makes others shift, sometimes without even realizing it. They lean toward your calm. They match your energy. They start to trust you, not because of your words, but because of your restraint. Use silence like a weapon, but with wisdom. Like all tools, silence must be used with intention. It's not about being cold. It's not about withholding emotion. It's about understanding when less is more. In moments of tension, pause. In moments of power, pause. In moments of uncertainty, pause. Don't rush to explain. Don't race to rescue. Let things breathe. Let your stillness do the talking. Let your energy hold the space. Let your silence reshape the room, because when you've built enough internal control to sit still while others scramble, you've already won. Chapter 6. How to lead without authority. Leadership is often misunderstood. Most believe it comes from a title, a role, a position that grants control. But real leadership, influential leadership, has nothing to do with what's written on your nameplate. It has everything to do with how you make people feel. People don't follow titles. They follow energy. They follow alignment. They follow those who show clarity when others are confused, stillness when others are reactive, and direction when others are drifting. You don't need authority to lead. You need presence. You need consistency. You need to model what others can trust, even when no one asked you to. That's the hidden path to persuasive leadership. The quiet way. The path where people choose to follow you, not because they have to, but because something in you earns it. Leading with presence, not pressure. True leaders don't need to demand obedience. They don't manipulate others into action. They simply become the example. When people see how you handle stress, how you make decisions, how you stay composed in chaos, they begin to shift. It's not what you say that persuades people to follow. It's how you live. Do you show up on time? Do you speak with clarity? Do you keep your word? Do you treat others with grounded respect? These invisible signals are louder than any authority. People follow consistency. They follow those who are emotionally stable, mentally focused, and quietly driven. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to be in charge. You simply need to be undeniable in your presence. The currency of respect. In environments where you don't hold the official title, maybe at work, in groups, in business, It's easy to think you have no power, but that's false. You just haven't earned voluntary influence yet. That comes from respect, and respect comes from discipline, from clarity, from the way you make others feel, not inferior, but empowered. You don't need to overpower people to lead. You need to raise the standard, set the tone, carry yourself in a way that makes others want to match your energy. When people respect how you move, they begin to listen differently. They begin to weigh your words with more value. And eventually, without being told, they begin to follow. That's persuasion without force. That's leadership without authority. Creating emotional safety. The strongest leaders aren't always the smartest or most aggressive. They're often the ones who make others feel safest. In any group, there's tension. People hide fears. They avoid speaking up. But when you enter with calm, with kindness, with stability, people open up. They reveal more. They trust deeper. And when you create emotional safety, you gain quiet control of the room, not by dominating it, but by becoming its center. You earn a seat of power that no one can assign you and no one can take away, because it wasn't handed to you. It was felt, and felt power is lasting power. The art of leading through questions. People who lead with authority give answers. People who lead without authority ask powerful questions, because questions guide thinking. They shift the conversation without confrontation. They open people up to new insights without telling them they're wrong. Try this. How do you see this playing out? What outcome would mean success for you? What's holding us back here? These questions invite collaboration. They show that you're not here to command, you're here to guide. And in that guidance, your influence multiplies. You don't steal the spotlight, you shape the direction. That's subtle leadership, that's high-level persuasion. Influence through consistent example. The truth is, people are always watching. They're watching how you move when no one's paying attention. They're watching what you do when things get hard. They're watching how you handle both praise and pressure. If you want to lead without authority, become predictable in excellence. Let your habits become your brand. Let your consistency speak louder than your opinions. Show up early. Deliver without excuse. Stay even when others quit. Eventually, you won't need to convince anyone to follow. They'll already be watching. And that attention? That's influence earned, not borrowed. When to speak and when to hold back. A true leader knows that silence is often more powerful than speech. You don't need to contribute to every discussion. You don't need to assert your opinion just to prove you're smart. In fact, when you choose your words carefully, when you speak only when it adds value, your voice begins to carry weight. Let others debate for dominance. You stay calm. You hold your position. You speak when the moment needs you, not when your ego wants you to. That kind of restraint builds trust. People know when you speak, it matters. That's influence. That's leadership, earned in silence. Building influence across power dynamics. You may not have the title, you may not have the seat at the top, but leadership is not always vertical, it's horizontal. You can lead across teams, across peers, across projects, all by bringing clarity, energy, and reliability. Even your seniors, managers, clients, directors are influenced by those who bring solutions instead of complaints, direction instead of confusion, calm instead of chaos. Don't worry about status. Focus on becoming the most dependable person in the room. And soon, rooms will change when you enter. That's not fantasy. That's the slow, invisible work of influence in action. Chapter 7. The psychology of getting people to say yes. Every time you try to persuade someone, whether it's a client, a boss, a partner, or even a friend, you're stepping into a mental game. And in this game, logic takes a back seat. People don't say yes because the facts are correct. They say yes because it feels right. That feeling doesn't come from pressure or manipulation. It comes from psychological alignment. When their internal world matches your message, agreement becomes easy, natural, effortless. This is where persuasion mastery lives, not in argument, but in alignment. Not in speaking more, but in creating the right emotional conditions for a decision to emerge. The emotional brain makes the decision. Neuroscience shows us something powerful. People make decisions emotionally, then justify them logically. This means your persuasion fails if you only appeal to logic. You must first create a feeling that leads them toward agreement. The feeling could be safety, curiosity, inspiration, relief, clarity, or trust. Once that emotion is present, the person's brain opens up. The walls drop. Their resistance softens. Only then do facts and logic have a place. Reduce friction. First, most people try to push their way to yes. They explain, justify, argue, present more data. But the problem isn't lack of information, it's resistance. Before you can move someone forward, you must reduce the emotional friction. The invisible block that says, this doesn't feel right. This feels like risk. This feels like pressure. How do you reduce friction? By creating safety. By slowing down your pace. By asking calm, open-ended questions. By making the other person feel in control. Because the more control they feel, the less pressure they sense. And where pressure disappears, agreement becomes possible. The power of micro-commitments. You don't have to go from 0 to yes in one step. Often, persuasion works best in stages, small, low-risk agreements that lead naturally to larger ones. These are called micro-commitments. Instead of asking someone to make a big decision immediately, ask for something easy. Would it make sense to explore this together? Are you open to a new approach? Can I send you something quick to look at? When someone says yes to something small, their brain starts forming a pattern. I agree with this person. And once that pattern is set, bigger agreements come easier. Because the mental resistance has already been bypassed, micro-commitments create momentum, and momentum makes saying yes feel natural. The contrast principle. A classic psychological trigger. When you present two options side by side, the brain compares them, even if they weren't planning to. If you want someone to say yes to your main offer, present something less appealing first. This sets a mental anchor. Suddenly, your real offer feels more reasonable, more valuable, more desirable. Example, instead of directly offering your $100 service, first mention a $300 one with more features. Then say, but most people prefer the $100 version. It gets them exactly what they need. Now the $100 option doesn't feel like a cost. It feels like savings. That's the contrast effect. Used ethically, it frames your offer as the obvious yes. The principle of reciprocity. When you give first, without expecting anything, people feel the need to return the favor. It's hardwired into human behavior. This could be sharing a useful insight, helping solve a small problem, giving genuine encouragement or clarity. Once you've helped someone, their resistance lowers. They feel grateful, they feel seen, and they start to view you as someone worth helping back. That's the seed of persuasion, not through demand, but through value. The illusion of choice. Another powerful tactic, guide people by offering choices, but where all outcomes still move in your direction. Instead of saying, do you want this? Say, would you prefer this option or that one? People like to feel in control, and giving options helps them engage without resisting. You're not tricking them, you're guiding them gently, respectfully, while making progress toward your goal. The best persuaders don't just speak clearly, they design the path to yes, social proof and authority. People are more likely to say yes when they believe others already have. This is why testimonials, references, and credibility cues work so well. The human brain is tribal. It looks for consensus. It asks, what have others done in this situation? But remember, the tone matters. You don't say, everyone is doing this. You say, many people like you have chosen this path because This connects social proof with their personal identity. It makes your message more believable, more relevant, more persuasive. You also build authority by being calm, certain, and consistent. Not by claiming expertise, but by acting like someone who's been here before. People follow those who look like they've already walked the path. Remove the fear of regret. Even when your offer is good, people hesitate because they fear making the wrong decision. So part of your job is to remove that fear gently. You don't have to decide now, just explore it with me. If this doesn't feel right, we don't have to move forward. You're not locked in. I want this to feel like the right step. These phrases reduce anxiety. They communicate, I'm not here to trap you. When the fear of regret disappears, people feel freer to say yes. And freedom creates movement. Say less, mean more. Most persuasion fails because people talk too much. They oversell. They try too hard. But yes doesn't come from more pressure. It comes from more precision. Let your energy stay calm. Let your tone stay warm. Let your words be fewer, but sharper. When you speak with clarity, presence, and intention, people feel the alignment. And when they feel aligned, they say yes. Not because you pushed, but because it made sense, because it felt right, because it was time. Chapter 8. Mastering the Art of Subtle Influence. Not all influence is direct. In fact, the most powerful kind often isn't. Subtle influence works quietly. It doesn't demand. It doesn't announce. It doesn't seek attention. It simply guides people's thoughts, emotions, and decisions without ever feeling like control. Subtle influence is persuasion without resistance. It's the difference between pushing someone and letting them lean forward on their own. It's the ability to move others without them realizing they're being moved. And once you master it, people begin to trust you more, follow you more, align with you more, not because they're pressured, but because they feel empowered in your presence. The power of suggestion over instruction. When you instruct someone, you give direction. That works sometimes, but it creates pressure. It often triggers resistance, especially in strong personalities. They feel they're being told what to do, but suggestion bypasses that. It invites instead of insists. It leaves room for interpretation and autonomy. For example, you should really consider this. Too direct, triggering. What might it look like if you explored this path? Suggestive, open. That slight shift in tone makes a massive difference. The second version feels collaborative, not controlling. Subtle influencers learn to speak with suggestion, never coercion. Strategic language, shaping perception. Softly, words carry weight, but the way you use them determines how they land. Influence is not only what you say, but how it's received. Words like maybe, might, could, what if. These soften your message without weakening it. They reduce resistance by avoiding absolutism. People feel more comfortable engaging when they don't feel boxed in. Instead of saying, this is the best choice, you say, this might be the smartest move for what you're aiming for. Instead of, that won't work, you offer. Another way you might look at it is, you're guiding, not instructing, and that guidance creates openness. The influence of tone and tempo. How you say something is just as important as what you say. Fast, sharp speech creates urgency, but often signals nervousness or neediness. Slow, calm speech signals confidence, patience, and control. It creates space for your words to sink in. A lower, steady tone grounds the room. It signals authority without aggression. It makes people lean in, not because they're forced, but because they feel magnetized. Subtle influence is not about dominance. It's about presence. A calm presence speaks louder than intensity ever will. Planting ideas instead of forcing opinions. People hate being told what to think, but they love coming to conclusions that feel like their own. The subtle persuader understands this. They don't try to convince. They plant seeds. They say things like, "Some people in this situation have found success by, you may already be thinking this, but I'm wondering if there's a part of you that already knows the next step." These phrases guide attention without stealing autonomy. You're not leading them. You're leading their thinking in a way that feels respectful, aligned, and safe. That's the real win, not control, but cooperation. Letting silence do the work. Sometimes the most persuasive thing you can do is say nothing. A well-placed pause gives the other person time to reflect, to sit with the idea, to hear themselves think. You don't need to fill every gap with explanation. When you've spoken clearly, stop. Let it breathe. Let the silence grow just enough to make them lean forward. Subtle influence doesn't fear quiet. It uses quiet. Because in that silence, the message echoes louder. Emotional precision. Over emotional volume. Loud persuasion is emotional dumping. Subtle persuasion is emotional accuracy. It's when you say the right thing at the right time, with the right tone, aimed at the right emotion. Not, "I need this now," but "I trust you'll know what feels right when the time is right." Not, "Why didn't you respond yet?" but just checking in. This might still be worth exploring when you're ready. Emotionally precise language builds bridges. It makes people feel seen, not sold to. And feeling seen is the beginning of saying yes. Influence, without asking for attention. Some people persuade through dominance. Others do it through presence. When you walk into a room, your energy already speaks. If you're calm, grounded, intentional, people feel it. You don't need to introduce yourself with authority. People begin to defer to you naturally. They ask what you think. They pause when you speak. That's not luck. That's the result of internal mastery, translating externally as subtle influence. No need to shout, no need to perform. Just show up aligned and watch what happens. When to speak and when not to. Subtle influence is strategic. It knows when to lean in and when to hold back. Sometimes your silence is more powerful than your statement. Sometimes asking a question is more effective than giving an answer. Sometimes letting someone wrestle with an idea is more persuasive than solving it for them. You must learn to feel the moment, to sense when your presence is enough, because in that restraint lies power, and in that power lies influence. Chapter 9. Turning resistance into alignment. Resistance is not the enemy of persuasion, it's the doorway to real influence. Most people see resistance as a wall. They take it personally, they push harder, they try to overpower it with better arguments, louder voices, or more pressure. But the moment you do that, the other person digs in deeper. They protect their position, they stop listening, and the more you push, the more they lock down. But the master persuader knows something different. Resistance isn't a rejection of you, it's a signal that trust hasn't been built, that fear is still present, or that something important hasn't been fully seen, and instead of fighting that signal, they follow it. They listen deeper, they pivot, they create space, because the goal isn't to win the argument, the goal is to realign the energy so that both sides are facing the same direction again. Understanding the root of resistance. When someone resists you, whether by saying no, showing hesitation, going quiet, or pushing back, it's rarely about logic. It's almost always emotional. It could be fear of losing control, past bad experiences, uncertainty about the outcome, feeling misunderstood, protecting status or identity. If you treat resistance like a logic problem, you'll fail. But if you treat it like an emotional clue, you can unlock the moment. Ask yourself, what is this person really protecting? What fear or unmet need lives behind their pushback? When you seek understanding instead of control, you create space for trust to return. Validate before you redirect. One of the most disarming things you can do in a high-resistance moment is this. Validate. There, Perspective. Not agree, not surrender, just acknowledge. Say things like, "I can see why you'd feel that way. That's a completely fair point. I'd probably feel the same way if I were in your shoes." This lowers the temperature immediately. It signals that you're not here to force your way through. You're here to understand. And when someone feels seen, even in disagreement, they begin to soften. That's the first step to turning resistance into alignment. Ask, don't argue. When someone is resisting you, your job is not to push harder. It's to pull them forward with curiosity. Instead of trying to change their mind, ask, what's your biggest concern here? What would have to be true for this to feel like a better fit? Is there something I've missed that's important to you? These questions invite ownership of the solution. You're no longer arguing from opposite sides, you're building from the same side. And in that shift, persuasion becomes partnership. Let the silence do its work. When someone resists, don't rush to fill the silence. Let the moment breathe. Let the tension sit. Let them process. Many times people resist not because of what you said, but because they don't yet have the internal clarity to agree. If you speak too soon, you interrupt their process. But if you stay calm, stay quiet, and hold the space, they often find their own way toward alignment. You didn't convince them. You allowed them to choose. That's persuasion at its highest level. Redirect. Don't retaliate. There will be moments when resistance comes with heat, frustration, criticism, even personal attack. The immature persuader reacts, defends, argues back. The master stays still. They redirect. They say, "That's totally fair. Let me offer a different angle to consider. I hear you. Can I share what I see from where I sit? I get where you're coming from. Let's step back for a second and find the common ground." These phrases hold emotional space while regaining control of the conversation. It's not about winning. It's about guiding the rhythm, leading the dance, turning friction into flow. Give them a way out without losing face. Sometimes people resist because they've already said no once, and changing their mind feels like losing. Your job, give them an elegant way to shift without shame. You might say, "I know we looked at this differently earlier, but some of the pieces have changed since then. I appreciate you being open to revisiting this." Sometimes a second look brings a different clarity. These phrases protect their ego. They allow the person to pivot without feeling weak, because no one wants to feel they were wrong, but everyone wants to feel they've grown. Invite future possibility. If someone won't align today, don't slam the door. Leave it open. Say, "No worries at all. If things shift down the road, I'll still be here. Let's not rush this." If you ever revisit it, reach out. The timing might not be right, and that's okay. This does two things. It preserves the relationship. It makes you look strong, not needy, and that confidence sticks. Because the moment may pass, but your presence will be remembered. People often say yes later to those who respected their no now. Resistance is a mirror. Finally, ask yourself, is this resistance something in them or something I'm reflecting? Am I too attached to the outcome? Am I coming off as forceful or emotionally unstable? Am I listening or just trying to win? Sometimes resistance is not a wall, it's feedback. A cue to shift your energy, soften your tone, or realign your approach. When you master the art of reflection, you stop fighting resistance. You learn from it, you adapt, you evolve. And in that evolution, your influence deepens beyond words. Chapter 10. Influence through storytelling. If you want to move someone, move their emotions first. And the fastest way to do that is through story. Storytelling isn't entertainment, it's transformation. It bypasses skepticism, it silences logic, it pulls people into a world where they feel before they think, and once they feel something, their mind becomes open, receptive, willing. This is why storytelling is the backbone of powerful persuasion. Because when you tell a good story, people stop evaluating and start experiencing. They stop defending their opinions and start imagining yours. And when that happens, influence happens. Why stories work? The brain is wired for narrative. For thousands of years, humans have shared wisdom, survival lessons, and emotional truth through stories. They're how we make sense of the world. A good story does three things instantly: grabs attention, builds emotional connection, delivers a message without resistance. Facts inform. Stories transform. That's the secret. People don't buy because of what something is. They buy because of what it means to them. And story is the bridge that creates that meaning. The structure of a persuasive story. Every persuasive story follows a simple structure. You don't have to be a writer to use it. Just remember: problem, struggle, breakthrough, message. Problem: something relatable or familiar goes wrong. The listener sees themselves in this. Struggle: there's conflict, challenge, emotion, vulnerability. This is the emotional hook. Breakthrough: a shift happens. A lesson is learned. A decision is made. Message: you tie it back to the main point or offer without preaching. Example: a few years ago, I was stuck in a job I hated. Every morning I woke up with a pit in my stomach. I kept telling myself I'd leave, but fear kept winning. Until one day, I walked out in the middle of a meeting. I didn't even pack my things. That moment broke me, but it also freed me. It's why I help people like you now, because I know what it feels like to stay stuck, and I know what's on the other side. This isn't just a story, it's a mirror. The listener sees themselves inside it, and once they do, your message lands. Make it personal. The more personal your story feels, the more universal it becomes. People don't connect with perfect, they connect with real. They trust vulnerability more than credentials. They follow people who've been through something. When you share moments of failure, fear, or doubt, it creates permission for others to do the same. It builds emotional safety. So don't be afraid to tell stories where you took a risk and failed, were scared and still moved forward, made a mistake and grew stronger. These aren't weaknesses, they're magnets, because in your humanity, your audience sees their own. Anchor stories to emotion. Every story should be tied to a single dominant emotion. That emotion becomes the glue that sticks your message to their memory. Some emotional anchors: fear, don't let this happen to you. Hope, this could be your future. Belonging, you're not alone. Triumph, you're more capable than you think. Guilt, you can make it right. Relief, there's an easier way. Pick one emotion, build your story around it. Let the listener feel before they think, because when they feel, they move. Know when to tell the story. The timing of a story matters just as much as the story itself. Don't lead with a story when someone is in logic mode. Wait until there's resistance, tension, doubt. That's the perfect opening. Instead of defending your offer, tell a story. Instead of arguing about why something matters, show it through narrative. When someone pushes back, say, "Let me tell you something that happened to me once." And just like that, the room softens, the attention shifts, the wall drops, and your influence expands. Let the listener do the work. The best stories don't force a conclusion. They leave room for the listener to finish it themselves. You don't have to spell everything out. Let your audience connect the dots. Let them apply the story to their own life. Because when someone draws their own conclusion, it becomes theirs. It sticks deeper, longer. That's real persuasion. Not telling people what to think, but creating a space where new thinking becomes possible. Stories are sticky data, is forgettable. Emotion isn't. People might forget your pitch, they'll forget your logic, but they won't forget your story. Not if it was told well, not if it touched something inside them. That memory becomes a reference point. Days later, weeks later, they remember the feeling, the moment, the shift. And often, that's what makes the decision. Not the spreadsheet, not the offer, but the story. The one that made them feel like it's their time now. Chapter 11. Silent Signals, the Power of Non-Verbal Influence. Words can persuade, but your body tells the real story. Before you speak a word, people already feel you. They pick up on your posture, your energy, your facial tension, the rhythm of your movement. They form judgments, fast, instinctive, often unconscious. This is non-verbal communication, and it accounts for more than half of how we interpret trust, confidence, and intention. If you master what your body is saying, you can influence anyone, even in silence. First impressions are made before you speak. From the moment you enter a room, your influence begins, not with your words, but with your presence. People notice how tall you stand, whether your shoulders are relaxed or tense, if your face is open or guarded, whether your movement is fluid or stiff, if you make eye contact or look away. These cues speak faster than speech. And here's the truth. You can't fake body language for long. It always reflects your internal state. So true influence starts from within. Calm mind, chat, calm body. Grounded purpose, chat, grounded presence. If your energy is clear, your body will broadcast that clarity. Posture and presence. Standing tall with shoulders back and chest open signals confidence and strength. Not arrogance, just quiet power. When you occupy space comfortably, without shrinking or puffing up, people perceive you as someone worth listening to. A strong, upright posture says, I know who I am. I don't need to prove anything. On the flip side, slouched posture, folded arms, or fidgeting communicates insecurity or defensiveness, even if your words are strong. So train yourself. Sit and stand tall. Keep your neck aligned, not tilted down. Let your arms rest naturally, not crossed. Move with purpose, not with twitchy motion. Stillness is strength. People trust those who look at peace with themselves. Eye contact that connects. Eye contact isn't just about looking at someone. It's about being with someone. When done right, it builds intimacy, trust, and presence. When avoided, it signals shame, fear, or deception. The key is balance. Too little, disconnected, evasive. Too much, makes aggressive, invasive, just enough, grounded, attentive. The goal is not to stare someone down, but to meet their eyes as an equal. Use eye contact to show attention, not domination. Hold their gaze, break briefly, return gently. Let your eyes say, I'm present, I see you, I respect you. Facial expression, the hidden message. Your face is always speaking, even in silence. A relaxed face with soft eyes and a slight smile can do more to influence than a 5-minute speech. It disarms, welcomes, and connects. But when your brows are furrowed, your jaw clenched, or your expression frozen, people sense tension, even if your words are calm. Practice awareness. Keep your forehead smooth. Let your jaw stay loose. Allow your eyes to soften. Use slight facial mirroring when listening. The more emotionally open your face, the more people feel safe around you. And when people feel safe, they follow. Your hands tell the truth. Watch someone's hands and you'll know how they feel. Are they open still and expressive, or closed, hidden, and restless? When you speak with open palms facing slightly upward, it signals transparency and honesty. When your gestures match your message, pointing upward with excitement, slowing down with calmness, your words feel more authentic. But nervous hand-wringing, tapping, or hiding your hands in pockets sends a different message. Hesitation, insecurity, doubt. The lesson? Let your hands be visible. Use them to support your message, not compete with it. Keep them calm, controlled, intentional, movement and space. Powerful people don't rush. They move deliberately. They walk into rooms with steadiness. They don't dart or jitter. They're comfortable in their skin, and it shows. Even in conversation, the way you shift your body communicates energy. If you lean in too fast, you seem intrusive. If you lean back too far, you seem disengaged. Practice mirroring subtly. If the person is sitting tall, you sit tall. If they slow their breath, you match that tempo. If they lean in, you respond slightly, but don't overdo it. Mirroring builds rapport. It says, we're on the same wavelength, and that creates influence before words are even spoken. Silence as a tool. In persuasion, silence is not awkward, it's powerful. A pause before you speak shows thoughtfulness. A moment of silence after a statement gives it weight. Most people rush to fill space with words because they fear disconnection. But true influencers are not afraid of silence. They use it to emphasize, to let their message settle, to hold presence. The room listens harder when you don't speak immediately. Silence creates gravity. It invites attention. It signals that your words are worth waiting for. How to train your non-verbal intelligence. This isn't about memorizing gestures or manipulating expressions. It's about becoming aware. Start with your own body. In moments of tension, ask, what is my body doing? Where am I holding tension? Am I breathing fully or shallow? Are my movements rushed or intentional? Then, begin observing others. Notice how they shift when nervous, how they relax when they trust, how their hands reveal truth before their lips move. The more you study this language, the more fluent you become in human behavior, and that fluency leads to silent power. Aligning words with body. Ultimately, real influence happens when your message and your presence say the same thing. If you say, I'm confident, but your body says, I'm scared, they'll believe the body. If you say, you can trust me, but your face looks tense, they'll walk away. But if every part of you, your posture, tone, face, pace, aligns with your truth, they won't just believe you, they'll feel you. And once they feel you, you no longer need to persuade. They're already moving with you. Chapter 12. Ethics of Persuasion. Influence without manipulation. Persuasion is a powerful tool. Used well, it builds bridges, unlocks potential, and inspires action. But used carelessly, it can become manipulation. It can twist truth, exploit emotion, and erode trust. So, the master persuader must also be a guardian of ethics. Because the more powerful your influence becomes, the more careful you must be about how you use it. Influence versus manipulation. Let's be clear, these two are not the same. Persuasion invites, uplifts, and respects choice. Manipulation pressures, deceives, and overrides consent. The difference is intention. Persuasion says, let me show you a better possibility. You decide. Manipulation says, let me make you act, even if it's not in your best interest. Influence rooted in integrity lasts. Manipulation always collapses. It may get you what you want now, but it costs trust forever. And once trust breaks, your voice loses power. Why ethics matters in influence. Every time you persuade someone, you are stepping into a position of power. You are guiding their thoughts, feelings, or decisions, even if just a little. That is a sacred responsibility. And your reputation will be built not just on what you persuade, but how you do it. People may forget your words, but they never forget how you made them feel. If they felt tricked, they'll never trust you again. But if they felt respected, even in disagreement, they'll remember you as safe, strong, and trustworthy. That's long-term influence. Signs you've crossed the line. Sometimes manipulation is subtle. It hides behind polished words and charismatic smiles. To stay on the right side of persuasion, watch for these red flags. Are you hiding important information to get a yes? Are you creating false urgency or fear? Are you using guilt or shame to push compliance? Are you pretending to listen but only waiting to push your agenda? Are you treating people as tools, not humans? If the answer to any of these is yes, it's time to step back. Real power doesn't need to trick. It persuades by truth, by vision, and by respect. The golden rule of influence. Here's the simplest ethical test. Would I feel good if someone persuaded me this way? If the method would feel unfair, manipulative, or pressuring on you, then it's not right to use it on others. This standard forces self-honesty. It keeps your influence clean, and when influence is clean, it becomes sustainable, repeatable, respected. You'll build not just success, but legacy. Consent is key. Never forget, people must be free to choose. Even if they choose something you don't agree with, even if they say no. True persuasion respects autonomy. It creates space for someone to say yes, but never demands it, never corners, never traps. If you cross that line, what you're doing is no longer persuasion. It's coercion. You might get compliance, but you won't get commitment. And without commitment, your impact fades. Be transparent with intent. Don't hide your motives. If you're selling, say so. If you're recruiting, say so. If you have a personal benefit, disclose it. People respect honesty more than perfection. When they sense hidden motives, even the best message falls flat. But when you're open about why you're here, it builds trust. Transparency builds influence faster than manipulation ever could. Uplift, don't exploit. Every time you speak to someone's pain, be sure your goal is to uplift them, not trap them in it. Yes, emotion drives action, but you can choose to use that power with care. Speak to the fear, but don't amplify it. Speak to the need, but don't create dependence. Speak to the dream, but don't offer false hope. Lead with empathy. Deliver with value. Follow through with integrity. That's the path of the ethical persuader. Use persuasion to liberate, not dominate. The highest form of influence is to awaken strength in others, not to make them dependent on yours. So ask, am I giving people more power or taking it from them? Am I expanding their thinking or limiting it? Am I serving their future or just my own? When you use persuasion to unlock someone's potential, your impact becomes legacy, because they don't just say yes to you, they say yes to themselves, and that kind of yes doesn't fade. When to walk away. There will be times when you can persuade someone, but know that you shouldn't. Maybe they're too vulnerable. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe what you're offering truly won't serve them. The manipulator pushes anyway. The master persuader steps back. Because your goal isn't just to win, it's to win with honor. And sometimes the most powerful influence is to not use it. Influence that lasts is built on integrity. At the end of the day, people are not persuaded by what you say alone. They're persuaded by who you are. If you carry yourself with clarity, compassion, and consistency, your words gain power. If you always tell the truth, your voice becomes a force. If you honor choice, people trust you more. The best influence doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens over time, across moments, through character. And once you've earned that kind of influence, you won't need tricks. You'll speak, and people will lean in, because they know this person leads with truth, and that kind of truth is rare. Chapter 13. Persuading difficult people, turning resistance into respect. Not everyone is easy to influence. Some people push back. Some argue. Some shut down. Some try to control the conversation before you even begin. But here's the truth. Difficult people are often the most powerful to win over, because once you earn their trust, they become your strongest allies. The key is to stop pushing and start understanding. When you learn how to calmly disarm resistance, you can guide even the most stubborn person without force. Understand their defenses. Difficult people are not difficult for no reason. Their resistance is often rooted in fear of being wrong, ego wanting control, past experiences of betrayal, insecurity hiding behind arrogance, deep beliefs that feel threatened. If you treat their resistance as an obstacle, you'll trigger more of it. But if you treat it as a signal, a sign that they need safety, clarity, or respect, everything changes. Approach their pushback with curiosity, not judgment. Ask yourself, what are they protecting? What fear is underneath this? The moment you see the person, not just the behavior, you begin to influence. Stay calm in the face of fire. The worst thing you can do with a resistant person is match their intensity. If they're angry and you get defensive, tension doubles. But if they're heated and you stay grounded, you shift the energy. Calmness disarms ego. Slow tone, steady breath, relaxed posture, all of it sends a message. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to understand. Most people are used to emotional battles. When they feel no resistance from you, they soften, often unconsciously. Your stillness becomes the space where their walls begin to fall. Validate before you persuade. Resistant people often feel unseen or misunderstood. So before you present your idea, do something radical. Validate their position. That doesn't mean agreeing with them. It means acknowledging their experience. Say things like, I can understand why you'd feel that way. You make a strong point. Many would agree. It sounds like you've really thought this through. This lowers their guard, because most people expect persuasion to begin with opposition. When you begin with respect, they listen differently. Validation builds a bridge, and across that bridge, influence walks. Mirror their style. Difficult people often have strong communication styles. Some are loud, some are blunt, some are quiet and skeptical. You don't have to become them, but you can mirror just enough to build comfort. If they're fast-paced, slightly increase your tempo. If they're analytical, provide more logic. If they're emotional, meet their energy with empathy. When people feel you're speaking in their language, they trust faster. It's not about manipulation. It's about connection. And connection opens the door to persuasion. Focus on shared outcomes. Resistant people don't like being told what to do. So don't frame your idea as a directive. Frame it as a collaboration. Instead of, here's what I think you should do, say, here's one way we might approach this together. What outcome do you want most? Let's work toward that. I think we both care about solving this the right way. Shift the focus from your opinion to their goal. When someone feels you're on their side, resistance fades. You become a teammate, not an opponent. Ask questions that lead statements, invite argument. Questions invite reflection. Use gentle leading questions to guide resistant minds without confrontation. Examples. What would happen if we tried it this way for a week? What's the risk in not changing anything? Is it possible there's another perspective we haven't considered? These aren't traps, they're open doors. They allow the difficult person to explore without losing face. And when someone feels they arrived at a conclusion on their own, it sticks deeper. Give them control. Stubborn people hate feeling controlled, so give them choices, real ones. Offer 2 or 3 paths and let them choose. Even if all options move in your direction, the act of choosing gives them power. Example, we can move forward this week, next week, or revisit it after the pilot. What feels best to you? Now, they're not being pushed, they're participating, and participation leads to ownership. Don't try to win. With difficult people, the goal is not to win the debate, it's to win the relationship. Even if you lose a moment, you can win the momentum. That means don't correct everything they say, don't prove them wrong, don't chase being right. Instead, keep your tone low. Focus on connection. Let go of your ego. Sometimes, influence is built not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Silence can be more persuasive than the perfect argument. Use the power of time. Not every battle is won in the moment. Some people need time to absorb what you said, plant the seed, then walk away. Don't push. Don't pressure. Let your calm, respectful approach do the work in the background. Often difficult people come back later, softer, more open, ready to re-engage, because you gave them space. You gave them dignity. And that's rare. They remember it, they trust it, and they start listening more closely next time. Difficult people can become devoted allies. The irony of persuasion is that the most resistant people, when approached with skill, become the most loyal. Because you didn't dominate them, you understood them. And in a world full of pushy voices, being understood is unforgettable. So next time someone challenges you, don't fight them, don't flee from them, don't try to fix them. Stand in calm authority, show them respect, guide them gently, and you may just turn your hardest skeptic into your loudest supporter. Chapter 14. Charisma, the unspoken magnet of persuasion. Charisma is quiet power. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't beg for attention. Yet, when someone with charisma enters a room, people notice. Conversations shift. Heads turn. The energy subtly moves toward them. But here's what most people don't know. Charisma is not a gift. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be practiced, shaped, and mastered. Once you learn how to cultivate it, you won't need to chase attention. You'll attract it. What is charisma? Really, charisma is the perfect blend of confidence, warmth, and presence. Confidence makes people believe in your strength. Warmth makes them feel safe around you. Presence makes them feel seen and important. When these three qualities come together, people are drawn to you, naturally, without effort. That's charisma. And in persuasion, it changes everything. Because people don't just listen to charismatic individuals, they want to be influenced by them. Confidence that doesn't overpower. Charisma starts with confidence, but not the arrogant kind. It's not about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being grounded in who you are. Confident people don't rush to prove themselves. They let their energy speak. They don't shrink, but they don't puff up either. They speak slowly, clearly, with calm authority. To build this type of confidence, know your values. Speak from inner alignment. Don't over-explain yourself. Own your space without apology. Confidence doesn't say, "Look at me." It says, "I'm at peace with myself. You can trust me," and trust is the foundation of all influence. Warmth that connects. Confidence without warmth is cold, unreachable, intimidating. But when you combine inner strength with emotional openness, people relax around you. They feel safe, respected, cared for. That's warmth. Warmth comes through in your eyes, your smile, your tone of voice, your curiosity. It's built by listening deeply without interruption, remembering small details about others, celebrating people's wins, making them feel seen. Charisma is not just how you feel about yourself. It's how you make others feel about themselves. And people never forget those who make them feel important. Presence, the silent magnet. Presence means giving your full attention, not checking your phone. Not preparing your next sentence while they talk, just being there, fully. When you're present, people feel it. Your eye contact deepens, your listening sharpens, your energy becomes still. In that stillness, people open up. They feel valued. They feel safe to be themselves. And that's when persuasion becomes effortless. You're not pulling them toward your idea. They're leaning in by choice. Presence is power. It's rare, and it's magnetic. Speak less, say more. Charismatic people don't talk to fill space. They speak with intention. Every word has weight. They pause. They let silence work for them. They don't chase reactions. They allow words to land. This style of speaking draws people in. It creates intrigue. It shows certainty. When you speak less, but with clarity, people lean forward. They pay attention, not because you demanded it, but because your energy deserves it. Be unshakably calm. Nothing is more charismatic than someone who stays calm under pressure. In chaos, they remain composed. In conflict, they stay centered. In uncertainty, they breathe slower, not faster. This calmness is contagious. People trust those who don't flinch easily. To build this calm charisma, practice slow breathing. Learn to pause before reacting. Focus on internal stillness. Don't let external energy control your internal state. The calmer you are, the more control you hold, not over others, but over yourself, and people instinctively respect that. Use story to spark emotion. Charismatic people don't just share facts. They tell stories, not dramatic performances, but real, emotional, simple moments that reveal truth. Stories bypass logic and go straight to the heart. They allow people to see themselves in your journey. They create emotional alignment, and emotional alignment is where persuasion begins. So don't try to impress with data alone. Move people with feeling, make them feel something, and they'll follow. Energy is everything. Charisma is more felt than seen. It's in your vibe. Some people enter a room with heavy energy, complaints, stress, self-importance. Others walk in with lightness, clarity, joy, even quiet joy. And people want to be around that. Your energetic state is always influencing the room, even in silence. So before every interaction, check in. What am I carrying into this space? What kind of presence do I want to embody? How can I radiate calm, focus, strength, warmth? Because persuasion isn't just in your words, it's in your being. The balance, humble but certain. True charisma isn't arrogant. It's humble, but not unsure. It says, I know my value, but I don't need to dominate you with it. Charismatic people uplift others as they speak. They don't try to be the smartest. They try to be the clearest. They don't make others feel small. They make them feel seen. This humble certainty builds respect without intimidation. And respect is the gateway to deep influence. Charisma can be learned. You don't need perfect looks. You don't need loud personality. You don't need to be the life of the party. You need alignment. When your confidence, warmth, and presence flow together, people feel it. So practice. Grounded posture, gentle eye contact, focused listening, thoughtful speech, calm energy, respect for others. Bit by bit, your presence shifts. People start to respond differently. Doors open, hearts soften, minds listen. Not because you pushed, but because your energy pulled. Chapter 15. Living as a person of influence. Beyond the moment, into the legacy. Persuasion is not just a skill, it's a way of being. You've learned how to speak, how to listen, how to read emotions, how to present ideas. But the deepest level of persuasion doesn't come from technique. It comes from character, from the person you become when no one is watching, from how you treat people who can do nothing for you, from how you carry yourself in silence. If you want to truly get what you want from anyone, consistently, respectfully, and powerfully, you must live as someone others want to follow. Influence starts before you speak. People form impressions of you long before you open your mouth. It's how you walk, how you breathe, how you look at them, how your energy enters the room. Do you bring tension or peace? Do you demand space or offer calm strength? Do people feel they must perform around you or relax? You don't have to say a word to influence someone. Your presence speaks first. So become the kind of person who brings a shift simply by showing up. That kind of presence isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. When your body, your tone, your words, your intentions all align, people feel safe, and in safety they open. Values make you magnetic. The most powerful influencers are value-driven. They don't chase approval. They stand in principle. People follow those who stand for something. not those who sway with every breeze. So ask, what do I believe in deeply? What won't I compromise on? What kind of energy do I want to leave behind? When your persuasion is rooted in values, not tactics, you gain trust. People begin to think, even if I don't agree with this person, I know where they stand. I respect that. And respect turns into influence. Consistency builds credibility. Anyone can persuade once, but can you influence again and again? That requires consistency. You must be reliable, not just in words, but in how you show up. Do you follow through? Do you admit when you're wrong? Do you treat the janitor the same as the CEO? Do people know they can count on your energy, not just your expertise? The more consistent you become, the more powerful your voice becomes. People stop needing to evaluate you every time. They begin to trust you without question. That's long-term persuasion. Give more than you take. People don't remember how clever you were. They remember how generous you were. The most persuasive people are givers. They give insight. They give encouragement. They give opportunity. They give respect, not because they expect return, but because that's who they are. This kind of generosity creates influence beyond logic. It creates loyalty, and loyalty is the ultimate form of persuasion, because people follow not your words, but your heart. So lead with it. Give your best energy, your full attention, your sincere help, especially when it costs you nothing. Over time, this becomes your signature, and your signature opens doors that skill alone cannot. Know when to lead and when to follow. Powerful influencers don't always take the spotlight. They know when to step aside and lift others. They know when to let someone else shine. They know that true power is not in being the loudest, but in being the most attuned. Sometimes your influence will come not from what you say, but from the permission you give others to rise. And in doing so, your presence becomes larger, even in your silence. That's how legacy is built, not by dominance, but by empowerment. Influence in every role you play. You are not just a leader when you're at work. You're a leader at the dinner table, in the coffee shop, with your friends, your family, your child, your team. Influence is not a job title. It's how you show up as a human. Do you listen to understand or to reply? Do you encourage when others feel small? Do you stay calm when others lose control? Do you bring clarity where there is confusion? If you carry influence into every moment, not just the big ones, you'll notice that life begins to bend in your direction, not because you forced it, but because you became someone the world wants to follow. Your life is your message. At the end of the day, people don't follow strategies, they follow stories. And the story of your life, how you live, love, lead, forgive, persist, and overcome, is your most persuasive tool. So ask yourself, what story am I living? What message is my daily behavior sending? What kind of influence will I leave behind when I'm gone? Because this book may end, but your life message continues. Make it persuasive, not just in how it sounds, but in how it feels to everyone you meet. Final words. You have the power. Now you've learned the tools. You've understood the psychology. You've built the inner character. You've felt the shift. Now carry it forward. Persuasion is not just about getting what you want from others. It's about becoming someone who leads others to what they didn't even know they needed. Use your words to build, not to bend. Use your presence to open, not to overpower. Use your silence as much as your speech. And above all, use your influence to leave every space better than you found it. That's mastery. That's real persuasion. And that's who you are now.